All right, so this hopefully will be a short little video. I want to do just a simple transition, kind of a pop move. And basically what's going to happen is that I've got two different movements here that I created. I've got one that's a very simple scale. It sort of does it, and it's just a scale down and flip, but nothing too crazy. But then in the second one that I've got, it actually bounces, does that scale and pop, so that I can transition one item into another. I'm using geometric shapes here to do these. I'm doing it the way I'm doing it so that it's a process that can work whether you're using a PNG file or an imported file of some kind, or a shape within After Effects. So that's why I'm doing this as two separate elements to sort of cover a variety of use cases, hopefully. So, our ultimate goal here though is to bring this up, bounce it, and then when it pops back up, it scales up into a cube and just sort of slides towards us. So they're just simple transforms. I'm not using any effects or anything else with this one, so it should be fairly simple. I've already set up a comp, which is just, I've got a foreground object, a background object, and then I've got my ball and my cube, the two objects that I'm going to transition. So if I so let's start by, and I'll go back to my example here real quick, but these don't last very long. The animations themselves, animations happen very quickly. So this whole thing happens over the course of a second. This is just the initial scale move. So what I want to do is start out with two compositions that are just probably 15 seconds long each. So, or two shapes that are 15 seconds long each. So if I go back here to my comp, I'm going to draw my playhead over to 15 frames, and selecting both of these, if I hold down my Option key and tap the backspace, it'll trim those down. And then I'm going to set my initial scale positions while they're both here, just to keep things easy. So I've got my scale open already. Remember that S on the keyboard will open those up. And we'll set keyframes for both of these. But the box, let's see, the ball is where we're going to start. The boxes are end result. So at 0, I need to make the box 0 in scale. I'm just going to use a scale to do this. And then if I come out and my ball is scaled at 100, and then if I come out here to 15 frames, I'm going to flop this. I want to make my ball scale to 0 and my box scale to 100. And what I end up with is, if I slide these across, I get a very simple, I'll just draw this in for the time being so that we don't, very simple kind of a linear movement. Two things to point out here real quick that I didn't mention. First is, remember that all of our transforms always happen off our anchor point. So we've got to make sure we set our anchor points correctly. And in this one, I already have. If you notice, if I select the ball, you'll see that the anchor point sits right here at the bottom. And I just do that with the pan behind tool, and I turn on snapping to make sure that when I pull it into place, it locks onto that point. I did the same thing for the box. So the anchor point needs to be at the bottom for this to work right. So let's just draw this out to about 2 seconds, and then I'm just going to drag the rest of this shape out. So there's my scale. Nothing too crazy, nothing very interesting, but I do want to sort of change the timing on this a little bit because it's all very linear. Nothing works that way, and it's just really not that interesting. So as far as simple scale transitions go, I'm going to select all these keyframes, change them to, right click, change them to easy ease. And then I'm going to go into my graph editor. So the graph editor we're looking at here real quick is usually the one I usually use the speed graph, which is what this is. So if yours looks like this, you're in a speed graph. But if you right click, you'll see that here in the middle there's two options. There's edit speed graph, which is checked in my case, edit value graph, which is not. If I take a look at the value graph, this is how that looks. And it's visually is a little more like what we see going on here. This is our 100% of scale. This is our 0% of scale. This is our 100% of scale. So of both the objects in my timeline, this is depicting what's going on. And they're in this nice kind of a wave pattern because I've already applied my easy ease. So if all of my keyframes are still linear, actually, it would look like this. So, but they're not. We're going to make them easy ease. So I'm just going to go back over here and click this. So there's my easy eased form. If I go to my speed graph, this just looks a little different. So we're going to take, and this actually refers more to the speed of what's going on, the timing of the shape movement. So because I easy eased it, it grows kind of quickly. It eases off near the top or near the end of the apex of the movement, and then it speeds up at the end. That's what easy ease does. Same thing's happening here. Quick, slows, quick. So here's the change I'm going to make. If I select these, I'm going to hold down my shift. I'm going to click on this handlebar, hold down my shift key. Actually, let's do this way. Click on this one, drag it over. Then we'll grab this and drag it over. And now when this moves, you see that I've gone from that very linear kind of a look to something a little more fluid looking. And I misspoke earlier. It actually slows at the end here. So it comes out slower, eases out, speeds up, eases in, which gives a little more of a popping look on that. So that's the first movement. And that's more refined than the linear effect. So let's take this comp. So this is just my pure scale move. And let's duplicate this. Since I've already got all these keyframes set up, let's go ahead and change this to, let's duplicate it. Command D. And this will be my more of a jump scale. I type like I talk. Okay. So let's jump scale. Let's get rid of the pure scale because we don't want to look at it. Don't want to confuse what we're doing here. Let's open our jump scale. All right. So this one's going to change. So what we're going to do to start with is it's going to actually pop up in the air. And then when it comes down, it's going to hit scale down, and the other one's going to pop up in its place. And then I tossed in the additional little move of it continues to scale on that baseline on the bottom so that it looks as though it's sliding towards us. So again, all very simple moves. It's all kind of set up through the timing and the keyframes that I set up. So if I've got this jump scale, let's do this. We're going to start with the ball, like I said, popping up in the air before there were scales. So let's start with the ball. Let's select him. Let's scale this down. All right. So P on my keyboard for position. And at the very beginning, he's sitting on the ground. We're going to come out to about 5 seconds. We're going to adjust all this timing here in a moment. We're going to pop him up. And then we're going to come out here just a little bit further and bring his position back to, copy that one, where it started. And then, so we've got this, and then we need to move our scale. So let's pull that back to about here. Start off here. Okay, so that's roughly the set of movements. Very linear on the jump, and where these hit and scale. The fact that they, one ends and the next one begins is really kind of ugly. So let's go ahead and start by, let's ease these keyframes to start with. And I want to do the same thing. I want this, when it pops up, I want it to sort of hang near the top, because remember, when an object sort of bounces up and is in a bouncing motion, it's quick when it comes off the surface, but then it sort of hangs near its apex and then drops. So I have those selected. Let's go ahead and, whoops, come over here. Let's ease these. And let's grab these and just sort of even them all out for the moment. Then let's select just the position keyframes, and I'm going to go back to my speed graph here. Select the middle ones. And like I said, I want it to hang. So I want to drag these handlebars over. So it hangs for just a little bit. And let's go ahead and grab the end ones. I want it to, drop a little quicker. So if we do this, pull these over. So that's a little better movement already, but we've still got this, the fact that it's the position and the scale are lined up. So let's just kind of grab this and the scale, and let's offset these a little bit. And then I think that, because I've kind of changed the dynamic here. So even though that this is timed out the same way that it was before, it doesn't play the same. See how slow that scales down? So we're going to, and I always exaggerate movements to start with. I mean, I don't really go in small increments. I go in big increments, and then I pop back. So that's getting annoying. So let's pull all of this down here. All right, so that's still a little quick, but that's all right. Easy enough for us to take a look at. So let's pull that out about there. And then too much still. Okay, so not bad. Let's try that. We'll start there. Okay. And then let's make a change to our box as he pops up into place. So this pops up, comes down, and then the box scales up. So take a look at our transforms. There's where the scale starts. And I'm kind of overlapping these a little bit. We really got to overlap our movements to kind of fool the eye into thinking we know what we're doing. So, all right, we got that. Scales down. That's not too bad by itself. We really probably could leave that. But I think I want this box actually scales up. I want him to pop up and then drop back on the surface. So we got that. So let's see, how do we want to make that work? So if he's sitting there, as he scales up, at some point he's going to kind of kick off the surface. So we'll just set a position there. As he gets up here, let's say right about here. I'm going to move this up to about there. And then he comes back down. And I'll just copy my original keyframe and paste it there so that not really right? But that's okay. We're going to fix all this up. So let us pull these out. Let's offset our scale and our position. Oops. Scale needs to be there. This, we're just going to slide out there, and we're going to have to change our trim. All right. So our scale. So let's go back and take a look at our little test that we did here. So our scale and our position are together there, but the jump happens much quicker. See? So let's go back to our jump scale. And what I see is that I probably really want to pull these all the way over here. That's my position, and let's pull the scale over to right about here. There's our position. And my scale. It's all about my timing. So kind of ease that over a series of what? 4, 5 frames. 5 and 5. So my timing on this one's just a little bit different, but that's all right. So 19, and then this comes out to 24. So let's easy ease this. And this, instead of easing out of this position, I'll pop back over here to my speed graph. And if I come down here and click on this convert to linear, now when I do this, now things are happening in a little bit better time. And as messed up as it was before, it was simply a matter of looking at my speed graphs and identifying how my keyframes are all set up. So if that's a better move overall, don't you think? And we can tweak that as much as we want. Maybe this guy, maybe we actually pop him up a little higher. Oops. Let's slide him up. Yeah, too much probably. Too little. Maybe I do that and still doesn't look quite right, but you get the idea. It's really just a matter of changing our timing, making things. Let's see what happens with that. Maybe it makes sense to offset that a little bit. So really just a simple, it's working with the easing, working with the timing. The transitions themselves are very simple. We can always add a little bit of extra to this by selecting both of these, going into our switches and turning on a little bit of motion blur. Always adds a little bit of, helps with a little bit of blending between the frames. So just sort of a simple scale pop move.